It's hard to miss it these days. The homelessness crisis seems more visible, more urgent.
It really does. And the numbers, well, they're stark.
Yeah, our source mentions something like 650,000 people experiencing homelessness on any given night in the U.S. That's huge.
It's a staggering number, and it represents so many individual stories.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into community-based solutions, looking at an article called Addressing the Homelessness Crisis, Community Solutions.
And it's clear right away this isn't a simple issue. So many factors involved.
Right. Homelessness doesn't just affect one type of person. It cuts across age, ethnicity, background.
Though the article does point out, and it's important, that certain groups are disproportionately affected.
Yes, definitely. It mentions racial and ethnic minorities, veterans, single-parent families, LGBTQ plus youth. They face a higher risk.
Which hints at those deeper systemic issues woven into individual circumstances.
And those circumstances often include a few key drivers the article outlines. First up, economic instability.
Yeah, the classic squeeze, right? Housing costs going up, wages, not so much.
Leading to people just not being able to afford rent, maybe facing eviction. Stuff out there.
That affordability gap is a huge piece of the puzzle in so many places. Even people with jobs can end up losing their homes.
Then there's the health aspect. The source talks about mental illness and substance use disorders.
And how those challenges can make finding and keeping stable housing incredibly difficult. It's often a cycle.
A cycle? How so?
Well, being homeless can worsen mental health conditions, right? And having those conditions makes it harder to get housed. Plus, accessing consistent treatment without a home, that's a major barrier.
Makes sense. And fundamentally, there just isn't enough affordable housing available.
Exactly. A basic supply and demand problem that puts pressure on everyone at the lower end of the income scale.
The article also mentions other things like discrimination, lack of social support, trauma.
It all adds up. It really paints a picture of a complex web of issues. Understanding all these pieces is, well, crucial for finding solutions that actually work.
Okay, so it's complicated. But the good news, or the hopeful part, is that communities are stepping up. Community involvement is a huge theme here.
It is, and it's not just about governments or big charities. The article really highlights the role of, everyday people, local groups.
Like local advocacy, people getting involved with their city council, pushing for affordable housing or better healthcare access.
Precisely, bringing those local, on-the-ground perspectives into the decision-making process. That insight is invaluable.
Their voices can really shape policies to better meet actual needs.
And then you have volunteerism, people giving their time, their skills at shelters, food banks, outreach programs.
The direct help is vital, but it's also about connection, isn't it? Building community ties.
Absolutely. It fosters empathy, a sense of shared responsibility. It's showing people they're not invisible, that they're valued.
And this links to civic engagement, too, showing up to meetings, getting involved in local initiatives.
Yeah, building that collective understanding, making homelessness something the whole community feels responsible for tackling.
So it becomes a shared goal, not just somebody else's problem.
When that shift happens, communities are just so much better placed to pool resources and find solutions that stick.
Okay, so community involvement sounds great in theory. What about in practice? The source gives some concrete examples.
Yeah.
Homeward Bound in San Francisco.
Right. That one focuses on families. They provide permanent housing, which is key, but also wraparound support services.
And it relies on collaboration, doesn't it? Agencies, nonprofits, volunteers, all working together.
Exactly. And it's not just housing. They offer job training, educational support too. It's holistic.
Addressing those underlying issues, not just the immediate need for shelter, helping families really rebuild.
It empowers them, gives them tools for independence.
Then there's the Housing First model. We hear about that a lot. Salt Lake City, Minneapolis.
Yeah, that's a really interesting shift in thinking. The idea is get people into housing first, without preconditions like sobriety or treatment compliance.
Why that approach?
Well, the thinking is it's incredibly hard to deal with, say, addiction or mental health issues when you're sleeping rough. Housing provides that basic stability.
A foundation.
Exactly. A platform from which they can then access services and start working on other challenges. And the source says it's been really effective, especially for chronic homelessness.
That's powerful. The source also mentions Turning Point in Texas.
Yeah.
Shelter plus comprehensive support.
Mental health counseling, job placement help. Again, that integrated approach. Recognizing homelessness is multifaceted.
Addressing immediate needs and longer-term ones. A pathway to stability.
Right. And finally, the Seattle example. the Homeless Outreach Program.
That sounds like direct engagement, meeting people where they are.
It is. Trained teams go out, connect with people living unsheltered, build relationships, and link them to resources.
Building trust must be a big part of that.
A huge part. That consistent, proactive outreach fosters trust and can lead to much better long-term outcomes.
So all these examples really show that collaboration and using local resources creatively can make a real difference.
Which leads us nicely into that whole theme of collaboration itself. The article really hammers this point home.
Yeah, it says, no single group, government, nonprofit, business can solve this alone. Partnership is essential.
Makes sense. Nonprofits, for instance, they have the street-level experience, right? They understand the daily challenges.
So they can help governments design programs that are actually practical and, well, humane.
Definitely. They often have that established trust within the community, too.
And businesses. What's their role?
Funding, obviously,
Yeah.
but also things like job training programs and, crucially, actual job opportunities.
Right, creating pathways to employment that helps the individual and can help meet local labor needs, too. It's a win-win, potentially.
It contributes directly to breaking that cycle of homelessness, fostering economic independence.
The article also talks about pooling resources, money, people, services to get more bang for the buck.
Avoids duplication, makes everything more efficient. Like that example of businesses helping shelters add job readiness or mental health support to their services.
Argue the impact further.
And collaboration also means sharing knowledge, right? Learning what works, what doesn't, and spreading those best practices.
So communities aren't constantly reinventing the wheel.
Exactly. That shared learning is vital for improvement when you're dealing with something this complex.
Now, another really critical thread the source pulls on is the link between homelessness and mental health.
Oh, absolutely. They're deeply intertwined. Many people experiencing homelessness are also dealing with things like depression, anxiety, PTSD.
And it can be cause and effect, right?
For sure. Mental health issues can lead to homelessness, and the trauma of being homeless can trigger or worsen mental health problems. It's a vicious cycle.
So integrating accessible mental health services into support programs is just essential.
It has to be a core component, not just treating symptoms, but addressing those underlying challenges that keep people trapped.
And those outreach programs you mentioned, bringing mental health professionals to the people.
So important. It overcomes barriers like transportation or just the difficulty of navigating the healthcare system when you're in crisis.
Meeting people where they are, making help easier to access.
Increases engagement, improves outcomes. Simple as that.
The article also mentioned training community members like regular folks to recognize mental distress and respond supportively. I thought that was interesting.
It builds community capacity, doesn't it? Creates a wider support network, helps reduce stigma around mental health.
Makes the whole community more understanding and supportive.
And again, it all circles back to collaboration. Mental health providers, housing agencies, local government, they all need to be working together.
To create programs that are joined up that treat the whole person.
Exactly. Cohesive, tailored support.
Okay, another really vital piece, according to the source, is economic empowerment. Job training specifically.
Yeah, helping people get the skills and find work. It's fundamental for long-term stability, isn't it?
Makes total sense. The article talks about skills, workshops, technical skills, but also soft skills like communication.
Catering to different needs and interests, making people more employable across the board.
And it's not just the training, but the support around it. Help with resumes, interviews, navigating the job market.
Those practical tools are crucial. They bridge that gap between learning a skill and actually landing a job. Builds confidence, too.
And partnerships with local businesses for actual jobs, that seems like a direct pipeline.
A really valuable link. It benefits the individuals, obviously, but also ensures the training matches what local employers actually need.
So it's all geared towards breaking that cycle, fostering genuine independence through stable work.
Long-term stability.
Now, looking beyond immediate support, the source also talks a lot about prevention. Stopping homelessness before it even starts.
Which is arguably the most effective approach in the long run, and often more cost-effective, too.
So what kind of prevention strategies does it mention? Rent assistance seems like a big one.
Yeah, direct financial help to families who are struggling, helping them cover rent or utilities to avoid eviction in the first place.
Keeping people in their homes. Seems straightforward, but probably very impactful.
It can prevent that initial trauma and cost of displacement.
And eviction prevention programs offering legal aid, mediation, financial planning.
Helping people navigate tricky situations, understand their rights as tenants. That education piece is important too.
Knowing your rights can make a big difference.
Definitely. And then there are early intervention initiatives.
Like identifying people at risk of homelessness early on.
Exactly. Support networks that can spot the warning signs and step in with help, maybe financial counseling, job support, mental health services, before things reach a crisis point.
Being proactive rather than just reactive.
And no surprise, this also requires collaboration. Governments, nonprofits, advocacy groups, all working together on that safety net.
Creating a strong, coordinated system to catch people before they fall.
That's the goal.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. How does bigger change happen? The source talks about grassroots movements advocating for policy changes.
Right. How local communities can organize and push for systemic reforms that address the root causes, not just the symptoms.
Things like community forums, partnering with nonprofits to amplify their message.
Yeah, forums create space for dialogue, build consensus. Partnering with established nonprofits lends expertise and credibility.
And using the media to raise public awareness, educating people, motivating action.
Absolutely. Sharing stories, sharing data, it helps people understand the complexities and why supporting solutions matters.
And ultimately, it comes down to individual citizens engaging, right? Talking to local leaders, showing up at meetings, joining advocacy groups.
Making your voice heard. Collective action really can influence policy and drive change.
So we've covered a lot, the problems, the solutions, the importance of working together. Listeners might be thinking, okay, but what can I do?
And the good news is, the source says everyone can play a part. It offers some really practical steps.
Like volunteering, getting hands-on at shelters, food banks.
A great way to connect directly, offer practical help. Even a few hours makes a difference.
And if time is tight, donations are always needed, right? Money or specific goods like clothes, toiletries.
Just make sure it's going to reputable local organizations where it will be used effectively.
Supporting local initiatives, too, attending those community meetings, maybe contacting your local officials about these issues.
Absolutely. Participating in the local conversation, advocating for solutions, helps create that supportive community environment.
And finally, just talking about it. Encouraging friends, family to learn more, maybe get involved themselves.
Spreading awareness, building that collective momentum, every little bit helps amplify the impact.
So wrapping up this deep dive, a few things really stand out to me. Homelessness is incredibly complex, yes. Deep roots.
Economic issues, health challenges, societal factors. It's all interconnected.
But, and this is the hopeful part, community-driven solutions are working. Collaboration, prevention, direct support. They're making a real, tangible difference.
And understanding that complexity, that multifaceted nature, is key to backing the solutions that will be most effective. It needs that comprehensive approach.
Definitely. So to leave you, our listener, with something to think about, we've talked about lots of approaches: housing first, mental health integration, job training, prevention. Considering all that, what single element do you think holds the most promise for truly sustainable change when it comes to homelessness?
And maybe think about how your own community could potentially leverage that element more effectively. What does it look like where you live and what's possible?